Welcome to Bottle Rocket with Elena Sucheva, your top hockey podcast. All right. Welcome back to Bottle Rocket. I'm Elena, joined as always by Maeve and Jerry. Today, our guest is Bruce Bennett, one of the most influential figures in hockey imagery and visual storytelling. For nearly 5 decades, Bruce has documented the history of the game, covering over 5,800 games, 6 Olympic Games, and shaping how the world sees hockey through Getty Images. Bruce, welcome to Bottle Rocket.
Thanks, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever all of you are.
I'd like to start with a question because Bruce's saga from a Long Island kid hockey fan to now, where, as I have often said, the greatest photographer of hockey. Bruce, at what point did you get to like hockey? And then how did you translate that to hockey photography at the beginning of your young life? I want to know how that started, because this is a great story.
Sure. Well, loved hockey as a kid, watching it on TV, back in growing up in Levittown, New York. Watching New York Rangers. Obviously, there were no New York Islanders back then, but I was a big New York Rangers fan, as everyone on Long Island was. Started playing roller hockey, street hockey, then roller hockey. No ice hockey till later age, 16, 17. So a big hockey fan. And my father was actually big into photography as I was growing up, and before that documented his years during World War II and his growing up days in Brooklyn. Always had the camera, always documented and put albums together of everything that he photographed. So I caught a little bit of the bug from him and kind of married the two when I was 18. Shot a few pictures from the blue seats at Madison Square Garden and at New York Islanders game in the warm-ups when my cousin snuck me down to the photo box and sent him to the Hockey News up in Canada. And the publisher at that time was very famous Ken McKenzie, and he got me a photo pass. So 74, 75, started shooting some Rangers and Islander games on a Hockey News provided photo credential, and away we went.
What about your motivation now? Do you still have that highly motivated desire to keep doing the best, or is it slipping?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't slip. It's you get up for every game, kind of like the players. You can't mail it in, otherwise people notice, and more than that, you notice. Look, there are a lot of times that the people next to me at games are like, "Is this guy talking to himself or what?" And sometimes it's like, yeah, like, "Hey, Bennett, get your head in the game. What the hell are you doing? How could you miss something like that?" Bad lens choice, stuff like that. And Stan, you might not know, but as you get older, sometimes you say things and you don't know if it's out loud or it's in your head. So maybe I'm at that point too. So I berate myself when I miss something, and quite often, probably too often, middle of the night, I kind of wake up. Sometimes it's a bathroom break, but sometimes it's just waking up and think, like, how could you have done that last night? Like, in whatever situation, you should have stuck with a shooter. Stick with the shooter. Don't look in front of the net for somebody to tip it in and celebrate. But yeah, each day is a long process, starting early in the morning, thinking about who you're going to see, looking at the NHL media notes, mapping out a strategy. Sometimes what players have the propensity to move to certain areas of the ice. Sometimes from watching YouTube or watching games on TV, which I don't do all that often, but I'll pick up some nuances of what um, what the teams like to do. Will they dump it in, or will they try to carry it across the blue line? And
Is
that helps you be a little bit more prepared for the game at night.
Is there a single image that you've captured before that still gives you chills when you see it?
Um, I don't know if I don't know if chills is the right word. I've often said like my top 10 changes day after day, week after week. There are just so many, and there are some projects that I've been working on over the last few weeks. Going back through archival material. Somewhere on the Getty site, there's a place to have a board or a light box, and you could save like your best of the month or the best of the year or the best of all time. And you keep going back and looking at it and going, well, maybe this one is better than that one, or this one more people have mentioned to you and talked about. So maybe that should be one of your top 10. If I have to point to anything, I think it would be the Ovechkin shot from this past year when he passed Wayne Gretzky's record. It was just a lot of different things came into play and came together at the right time, including him turning around and sliding as he came straight towards me, and that was just an incredible moment. As much as you have to tamp down the emotion when you're shooting something like that, shooting hockey at all or any sports, you've got to take the emotion out of it. That was hard to contain my own emotions because it's one of those things that you want so badly. And if you blow it, everybody will know that you blew it and you missed the shot. Sometimes your fault and sometimes just the way the play goes. It's 50-50 proposition whether you're going to have it or not.
What separates a good hockey photo from a truly iconic one?
Um, oh, good one. The best hockey images are really, for me, the ones that show celebration and dejection in the same photograph. And that's probably the same for most sports photos. Um, at Getty Images, we place a lot of importance on the creative aspect of the photograph as well. So if it's done with a creative flair, um, different lens, different angle, and that's one of the reasons we do so many photos from remote cameras. And it's like kind of like Christmas morning when you get to the digital card in a camera that's either in the net or in the rafters, and you scroll through and you find images that you didn't know you had because you weren't visualizing it. You're just kind of pushing a button. And those are the kind of things that are super exciting and kind of like a golfer. That one great shot brings you back to the next game. Same thing with a hockey photographer. That one great shot, and you're ready to go the next day and excited about what's going to be presented to you.
When you started your career, when you were 18, 19, 20, who were some of the players that you were photographing or photographing rather? Sorry, it's 4:00 in the morning here. My brain isn't quite at 100% yet. I'm still uploading.
I gotcha. That's a good question. Well, Steve Vickers and Rod Gilbert and Rod Sealing and Jim Nielsen, the Ranger stars of those days. Around the league, Andre Richard, Montreal, Bobby Clark in Philadelphia. I'd need to pull out rosters. It was a long time back. It's kind of interesting. The play is just so different than what it was back then. And, Stan remembers, the games from the late 1800s and how good those were. But me starting in 74, I don't know, it was such a different time when you look at the game now and how the game has evolved. one of the key things I think has changed the game was when the NHL stopped obstruction, and that has allowed the skilled players to show off their skill. And to me, that opened up the game in such a way that it made it a hell of a lot more difficult to photograph, because the players were able to flow freely around the ice without being held up, kind of being held up so I could take a photograph and then they could move on. But yeah, it's been an interesting way that the league has evolved through the years, and has been super advantageous to photographers. But the early days of the photographing players, you know what? I'd have to go back and start looking at rosters for some of the ones that stand out. But Denny Potvin and Guy Lafleur, for instance. I mean, I could just keep coming up with names, but watching Lafleur charging up ice was exhilarating. Same way Mario Lemieux, when he would just weave his way through players. I mean, so many great players through all the years. Very privileged to have photographed a lot of them.
Do players today understand the power of imagery more than earlier generations?
Every once in a while, you'll have a player, that'll send you a note on Instagram or one of the social media platforms and ask if they could use a photograph on their platform. So there's a little more contact than there was in the early days. At the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame induction, I had a long talk with Scott Gomez, and he's such a great guy. And he told this story about that when he was playing for the Devils, he was so thrilled to be playing there, and he wanted some 8x10 photos of himself. And I said, I can do that. It's not a problem, but Mr. Lamarillo probably will have a problem with that. And he said, oh, I know he'd have a problem with us doing any kind of business transaction. So we actually met in the parking lot at the Continental Airlines Arena, and he said it was like a drug deal. I handed him an envelope of 8x10 photographs, and he handed me some cash. And he goes, as long as Mr. Lamarillo doesn't know, we'll be okay. And he's telling this story. He told this story the night before, and we were laughing about it. And the next day at the induction ceremony, he's up on the stage telling the story, and I'm already did my speech, and I'm sitting behind him, and I'm like, hey, Lou is sitting right over there.
Yeah.
Like, now we're going to be in trouble all over again, dude.
I was a Leaf fan going back to 46, 47. And I found a book in my archives which has a memorable photo on it. The problem is that the book that I'm holding is the cover's been torn up, but I think you can see the picture. Now, the reason why this is memorable, it's taken by a guy named Nat Turovsky. This is the last seconds of the final in 1947. The Leafs were leading 3-2, and Turovsky knew that there was only going to be a couple of seconds left. And what he did was he jumped on the ice. The game was still on, and he jumped on the ice with about 3 seconds left, and he was able to take the picture of the Leafs jumping for joy now that they had won the cup. And that to me was just a very daring thing to do. I mean, what have you done in an analogous situation to get a very unusual shot the way this guy did?
Oh, well, the video cut out. So no, I'm just kidding you. Well, all those pictures that you've seen that I shoot in the hockey net, I'm actually in there shooting those pictures at that time. So take that, Turovsky. Yeah. The only thing, and a lot of people, I guess, some people wouldn't think it's dangerous, is all that stuff we do on the rafters. And I'm not good with heights, never was. So you'll often see me very tentatively walking across the rafters to place a remote camera up there. sometimes in warm-ups, I'll shoot from up there, which I just hate doing, but you could get some great photographs. But setting up those remote cameras is about as dangerous as it gets. And what I used to love also, it was actually Philadelphia Flyers in the Spectrum when I used to walk across their horrendous catwalk that was made of corrugated metal, and your legs were going in all directions, and you'd get out there to put your remotes up, and there was always a fan or two that would just yell, "Jump!" But yeah, I guess it's the raft to work. Not as dangerous as you would think it is, but yeah, you don't want to drop anything on anyone, and you definitely don't want to fall from there.
You ever get hurt?
Not doing that. Not doing the rafters, but cracked ribs at Madison Square Garden. I always forget one of the Maxwell brothers, Brad or Brian, with a clearing shot from behind the net. And in those days at New York Rangers, our photo position was in the photo box was adjoining the penalty box, and it was just completely wide open for about 60 feet in length. And you were standing for some reason, maybe because through the cold ice, we were standing on an elevated platform. It was about 6 or 8 inches. So you were kind of over the boards, completely exposed to get hit from any and all angles. And Maxwell looked to clear the puck from behind the net, and yeah, he cleared it directly into my ribs. And that was the situation where I'm laying on the ground, and I'm looking up at that distinctive Madison Square Garden ceiling, and 2 heads popped over the boards, and it was 2 of the greatest linesmen of all time, Leon Stickle and Ray Scapinello. And one of them said, "The girl in the front row wants to know if your date is still on for tonight." And the other one said, "Try to fart. If you can fart, it means you're okay." But yeah, that photo position, I mean, I've gotten hit in other arenas, Islanders stitches top of the head, but that Madison Square Garden photo position was one where I was young when I started, when 18, and those years from like 18 to 30, I would get home at night, and when I was sleeping, I would just wake up flinching, worried about getting hit with a puck or a stick, or getting hit with a player. You were really like part of the game when you were in there.
I want to tell you a story about a photo that got me into trouble. When Bobby Hull was in his prime, the Golden Jet, he was just he was one of the most glamorous, great players of all time. And I did a story on him for a magazine. It was called Pageant Magazine. It's very popular back when the Hawks were in their prime at the beginning of the 60s. I did this piece on Bobby Hull, and it was, nothing but a nice piece. This guy was just, I think he was at that time one of the most popular players in the game. And they had Chicago had just won the Cup in 61, so this was the 61-62 season. I do this nice article about him for Pageant Magazine, and now the magazine is out, and by a coincidence, the Blackhawks happen to be coming to the Garden. They were playing at the Garden. Mind you, this is the old Garden that was on 8th Avenue between 49th and 50th. So the Blackhawks win the game. The article has come out, and I walk into the Chicago dressing room because they won the game. So I go into the winner's dressing room, and all of a sudden, Hull sees me, and he starts yelling at me. He's obviously angry at me. I don't forget how he cursed me or whatever he did, but naturally, I had to go over and say, "What the hell's going on here?" And I said, "What are you mad at me for?" He says, "That article in the magazine, in Pageant Magazine." I said, "What are you talking about? That was a sweetheart of an article." He says, "I'm not talking about what you wrote. I'm talking about the damn picture you put of me. I didn't have my teeth in." "I'm sorry, my dear friend. I don't take the damn pictures. So go call up the magazine and get the photo editor and yell at him, and don't yell at me anymore.
And that's what I tell the players also. I don't write the articles. I just take the pictures. So don't yell at me for what Stan wrote.
So you blame each other.
Yeah, it's worked great for 50 plus years.
So, Bruce, when a historic moment is unfolding, a cup win, a milestone, an emotional loss, how much pressure do you feel knowing you have one chance to get it right? Have you ever missed a moment that still haunts you?
Every night there's something that haunts me. That either makes me really good or really crazy. It's one or the other. Um, you know, each night there are moments that might go in the other direction. As I said earlier, it's a 50-50, and sometimes it feels like it's 80-20 against you. But at some point things turn around and they'll come your way. But that one significant moment, this one, one just came to me. Florida Panthers Stanley Cup final 2 years back, where puck is going towards the open net and Kachuk dives, spread out, and dives and knocks the puck away before it goes towards the open net. And I had a net camera in the net down at that end of the ice, and I've seen the replay 100 times or more because it's such a famous play. And the camera in the net, because of radio frequency issues, didn't go off. So I'm at the other end of the ice and I'm just holding the button and pushing it. Oh my God, that's going to be a great one. And to get there, and it just stuttered, had a frame or two, but didn't have that definitive moment that we were looking for. I mean, that's just one off the top of my head, but the pressure, I always said the pressure is on myself to be the guy who gets the photo. It ensures that for the NHL that history is captured in still imagery for Getty Images for our clients. But the pressure's in here. And that's why my hair is white. It's either that or marriage. I'm not sure which. But yeah, it's hard to describe. It's a burden that I bear, and I bear it willingly, and I can't help it. That's who I am. But at times it's difficult because the pressure is a little intense, but it's all on me. It's in here.
You have a rich sense of humor, which I've been aware of for many, many decades. How come your humor doesn't delete the anxiety?
Oh, there are times. I mean, I do a lot of pranks with the other photographers. Typically, at a Stanley Cup final, for instance, we'll have 3 or 4 photographers. So I like to keep it light, but it kind of keeps. I guess it does help me, but it keeps them light because they know that I'm not an easy guy to work with. I'm kind of intense when I'm on location. The ones who've been around me a long time, like my main editor, Justin Hyman, knows the workflow. He knows that I don't, lateness doesn't work for me, and other little idiosyncrasies like be on time. But I wish it did take me down a notch, and maybe it does ease the mood, in the room when they know that I'm stressed out, which is most of the time when I'm at an important game.
You're a Long Island guy, although I'm glad to hear that your father was from Brooklyn. That's my hometown. You're a Long Island guy. Where were you when, or were you shooting Bobby Nystrom scored the winning goal for the Islanders, the first cup back in 1980? Were you there?
I was there, yeah. Perfect position at center ice. there were two photo boxes on each side of the minor officials, and then the penalty boxes were a little further out from us. Um, and it was just one of those, one of those things where the sky opens and you see the daylight. And this was the same thing because it was the back of the play as it developed, shooting down to my right. And Nystrom scored. I don't remember. I don't think I really had anything great of the goal. It was just a lot of backs of players. But then when he hit those boards, or right before he hit those boards, he turned and jumped in the air. Back then, probably shooting, it's probably 6 frames per second. Now we're 20 or 30 frames per second. So, you've got a much better opportunity to get every iteration of guy jumping and getting maximum height. But he turned. You've got dejected flyer players. I think Bridgman and Daly possibly were the two that were in the corner of the frame. Yeah, it was, and that was one of my first great lessons in being a professional, was separating the Long Islander in me from the event that was unfolding in front of me. And I described this to someone not that long ago. You you have to not only shut out your emotions, but kind of put yourself in a bubble that you can't be seen, and you're just the camera that's there documenting the event. Um, what I remember most about that, because it's definitely a blur, but I remember leaving the ice, jumping over the lip of the boards towards the locker room to shoot celebration there. And it was like when I did that, my hearing opened up, my senses opened up. I had shut out everything. I was able to put myself in this psychological bubble of sorts and block out any distractions from other photographers or anything that was going around. And I just knew what was important was me and the cup, me and whoever's carrying the cup. But I just had this such a sense of not relief, but just all of a sudden everything had opened up in my head, especially my hearing, which had kind of shut down to some extent when I was out there on the ice. And it was just a way of focusing on the event and not being distracted.
So uh, you actually got to go on the ice with the players while the celebration is going on. Like, can you describe that? Because that's amazing.
Yeah, that's mayhem. That's complete, absolute craziness, which took the NHL a bunch of years to get in order. Um, yeah, that year and a bunch of years right after that, it started to get a little out of control. That year, you had fans jumping on the ice as well. We have had that in other years. But typically you could have 30 photographers out there, and then you've got the team and the team support staff and hangers on who jump out on the ice, and you're trying to like shoot through people who shouldn't be out there. One year it got so bad in Edmonton with Gretzky that the rule for us is closest lens wins, or the widest lens wins. And so I had the widest lens that wouldn't create a lot of distortion in the photograph, and I'm pushed right up against him in the cup. And I'm getting such pressure from the photographers behind me trying to get in there, that you could actually see in Gretzky's face the fear of the crush of everyone coming in at him. And everyone's yelling, "Get back, move back." And I'm pushing as hard back as I could against the photographers behind me. When I finally got off the ice, I had broken the flash off the top of my one camera, and my watch was completely gone. So it got so physically, got to be such a mess, and with Gretzky having such a problem there, that NHL came up with photographers stay on the carpet. And then it evolved at some point where the top media outlets get to run around for a while and capture the scene, and then you're cut loose for that famous team photo that they do at the end of each year. But yeah, it's a mess out there on the ice.
the Islanders Canucks series in '82, Mike Bossy, like speaking as an ex-goalie, this is from my perspective as a goalie. Mike Bossy scored the greatest goal, what I consider the greatest goal in Stanley Cup final history. He was absolutely perpendicular to the ice midair, and he managed to get a backhand away and scored. Were you there? Did you manage to get that shot?
Sorry, Jerry, the Vancouver Canucks fan. Yes, it did happen. There's no way to go back and rule that play was offside or anything like that. I don't remember in that arena. That arena was a mess. PNC, was it? I don't even Pacific Coliseum.
Pacific Coliseum, yeah.
Yeah. I know my photographer upstairs. I had my right-hand guy, Brian Winkler, was upstairs and got some great celebration on, I think, the aftermath of that goal. But if I'm not mistaken, I might have been in the Zamboni shoot. One of the wacky things about going on the ice at the end of cup presentations is that you stand there like a dummy for the last 5 or 10 minutes of the third period, and sometimes overtime and sometimes double overtime, and you basically can't shoot, and you're just waiting to get pushed out onto the ice when the final buzzer goes off. So I think I might have been in the Zamboni shoot at that point, but I don't remember at what point of the game that goal happened. Was that an overtime, or that was late third period?
No, that was the third period. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was probably standing there and just looking at the scoreboard and, stressing out, basically waiting to get out there. In more recent days, I'd have remote cameras around the arena, and sometimes like Crosby's golden goal in Vancouver was one of those where 10 minutes into the third period, we're all standing in the Zamboni corner, but I had remote cameras all over the arena, literally all over the arena. And the only way I could see what was going on was to kneel down behind a bunch of arena workers and peek through the back of the stands at the scoreboard with a little push button and just push the button when it looked like something around the net was happening. And that's how I got a good rafter shot of Crosby's goal. But most years you stand there and you do nothing waiting for that to happen. And the Bossy goal, I don't even remember if I even saw it until, after the game was over.
So last year, and actually the year before that, Bobrovsky almost missed the group photo when the Panthers won the Stanley Cup. He was doing an interview and the photographer called him, and he literally ran in and jumped into the shot at the last moment. That photo ended up in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Were you the one who took that picture?
Yeah, not the ones. Not the one. The Hall of Fame has their own photography crew there. But yeah, it's kind of funny because you set up that group shot, where the group shot gets set up. It's planned in advance where on the ice it's going to happen, and sometimes it happens there, and sometimes it doesn't. But as one of the 4 or 5 photographers that get to run around the ice while everybody else is on the carpet, we kind of set the line. The group of us set the line, say this is where we're all going to stay, and then the other photographers cut loose and they stand behind us. And the problem is you're not paying it. It's up to the players to get there for that shot. There were a lot of media on the ice at that point, grabbing players for live hits, live TV hits. The thing is, your photo's no good until you have the goaltender in there and you have the coaches in there. So you're shooting, then you realize, okay, wait a minute, we're missing Bobrovsky or missing somebody else, and everything you've shot up to that point is garbage because nobody's going to use it without the key players in there. And once everybody's in place, then you really hammer it on the shutter and get as many frames as you can and hope that you've got all the players looking forward to you, full face, eyes open, because that makes for a great winning shot. It's a great shot of that group celebration at the end.
I just want to make a historic note and get your reaction. So 54, 55, I'm out of college, and I went to work for the Rangers in publicity, 54, 55 season. Now, at that time, the print media ruled the hockey world in terms of media. For example, in New York, we had seven daily newspapers in New York. And what evolved was then television started to become more and more important. And what happened was there used to be battles, post-game battles in the dressing room between the print guys who hated the intrusion of TV, because then, yeah, they had big cameras and they would really, every once in a while they'd bump into the media guys. I remember specifically the late Larry Brooks getting furious, almost fights there. And I wonder if this ever happened with you, where guys get mad at you for, print guys or whatever guys, and you're in the way and they're mad at you. You ever get somebody mad at you while you're working?
All the time. You go in the zone to get the frame, and you look. I'd love to say it's peaceful coexistence, but it's not. Um, for us as still photographers, our big issue is everybody with their iPhones, and that means writers and podcasters and bloggers and all that shoving their iPhones in front of players when you're trying to do a photograph. So there are a lot of those scrums where we just take the camera and we put it up as high as we can and we shoot it at an angle to get over all the riffraff. But yeah, the early days, there was always a battle for position. There's a shot that I did of there's a shot that he did of Laney McDonald, kind of a famous shot, in the locker room after he won the Stanley Cup. His dreams realized, head leaning against the cup, eyes closed, and once again, I'm like right in his face. I'm as close as I can be. And I shot a few frames and then a few frames more, and the pressure of TV and still guys behind me. And at one point, I basically said, I've got enough. And I just dropped down lower, I think, onto a knee to let those behind me shoot it. When I was younger, I probably would have just stayed there and blocked everyone, but it was more of a coexistence at that point. I was just tired of being punched in the back of the head with TV cameras. That if I could, okay, let them get my shot. I got what I needed, and I could back out of that situation at that point. Nothing else there could possibly happen, I thought. So, but yeah, it used to be more fierce of a battle from in the earlier days. I don't know why things have calmed down, except obviously there's a lot less media showing up. Just for instance, Stanley Cup, the number was always 30 to 35 photographers in the arena for a Stanley Cup final game. Edmonton, I think we had 12 or 13. Fewer media outlets sending fewer photographers. So even Getty Images, we had 3 instead of 4. Associated Press or Canadian Press had 2 instead of 3. But fewer photographers out there to document the sport. And that makes it a little easier for us because there's less of a crowd.
Have you ever taken a photo that didn't really feel important in the moment, but later became historically significant?
I'll twist the question a little bit to suit my needs, because it is all about me, of course. The photo that always amazes me is it's Wayne Gretzky scoring in Buffalo against, I think, Sauve or Edwards. Oh, now see, my memory fails me, but breaking Phil Esposito's record for goals in a season. And it is the most boring photograph that I've ever shot. Puck is going across the line. There's nothing special about the photograph, but it is the historic moment. And it's one of those things you look at and go, oh my God, this photo has sold like, 500 times. It's been used everywhere. And yes, it's the moment, but a monkey could have shot that, or a remote camera could have shot that. Um, it's those kind of things that are, um, it's that serendipity of, what's going to happen with this image. Because I know when I shot it, I go, okay, you probably, because wasn't digital back then. So you're thinking, well, hopefully it was in focus, and you find out a couple of days later when you've processed the film that, yeah, it's a viable frame. Um, but I didn't think that something like that would have legs and just continue to get used over and over again. But yeah, it's a moment in hockey history. So sure, but it kind of kills me that it's just such a boring frame.
I'm surprised to learn that Gretzky broke a record and he wasn't playing against the Canucks, because it seemed like every record breaking goal he got, he was playing the Canucks. So there's a very, very famous photograph of Bobby Orr. I think Ray Lucier, was that his name? Ray Lucier shot where Bobby Orr scores the Stanley Cup winning goal and he's flying through the air. Is that something where you're a little bit jealous of another photographer that he got a great shot and you didn't?
End of webcast. Done. It's funny. I always said one of the most flattering things is when people would come up to you and tell you what their favorite photograph is that you shot. And it's always great when somebody comes up to me and says, yeah, that Bobby Orr photo when he's flying through the air. And it's like, dude, I did not shoot that photograph. It's like, you guys are just rubbing it in. You can't be everywhere. And sure, that was slightly before my time. I think I'd love to say I'm comfortable with my body of work, but yeah, I wish that was mine. Whenever I see a great photograph, maybe it spurs me on to be better next time and go, I can do that shot better. Especially if somebody puts a remote camera somewhere that I never have, if that's even possible, or they come up with a technique that I haven't used. So I'll steal that and try to do it better. Yeah. I am kind of comfortable in my place in history of what I've produced through the years. Yeah, obviously, as we said earlier, it still kills me the ones that I've missed. But if I wasn't there, I wasn't there, and if I missed it, I missed it. And I think I'm more comfortable with knowing that I have my place my photos have a place in hockey history. And yeah, they can't all be mine, but a great photograph.
What's your next big project?
I know you're going to the Olympics, but anything else before that?
Before that, it's coming up. It's coming up way too fast. Looking at the calendar, coming up way too fast, and there's a lot of prep to do for that. A lot of interviews that our company has set up. Some things to write for a couple of different websites about our coverage. And a little concerned about the coverage plan moving forward and what's going to work for our company and our editing staff, because that's an event we use all remote editors. So our images go directly from our cameras to our editors around the world. They're the ones who clean up the mess that we give them and make the things look presentable. So there's always a little uncertainty going in, a new arena that we haven't been in before, and will probably be built by the time we get there. So a lot of worries and concerns going in, but I go in January 29, start with women's games on the 5th or 6th of February. Those first few days are really nice because you get to eat out in Milan, and during the days you're shooting a few practices and light events and setting up remote cameras and figuring out how to get to and from arenas. That's the challenging part. But then when you sit down and you're shooting a game or standing up, depending on what the photo position is going to be, um, it's just you in the game, and that's where you get calm. It's the nervousness going in about the uncertainty of going back and forth and um, photo positions. Will the glass? It's an arena. We shoot through the glass, not through holes in the glass. Is the glass going to be good enough? What focal lengths are going to be usable through the glass? Once you're sitting there and it's just you in the game, it's gold because that's all you're focusing on. Well, everything else is noise. All the stress of the previous days is out of your head, and it's you and the players.
I want to get back to the Bobby Orr photo because in some ways it's really pissed me off, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I love Bobby Orr. He's done all wonderful things. So I'm not talking about Bobby Orr as a player. I'm talking about that picture. That picture, in a way, is a phony picture. The reason why it's a phony picture is that you get the impression that Bobby Orr was flying through the air and he shot the puck in the way Bossy did. What happened with this one was Derek Sanderson sent the puck to Bobby Orr. Bobby Orr shot, and he beat Glenn Hall. The goal was scored. Then the defenseman, Noel Picard, hooked Bobby Orr, and because he hooked him, he went flying through the air only because it was a hook after the play. It wasn't that he shot, and he was flying through the air. So the Bossy one, to me, was a legit picture of a guy shooting the puck, while he was in the air. Bobby Orr shot the puck normally, then he get hooked, and then he's flying through the air. And as a lover of the Islanders, I always say, in a sense, Bossy got a raw deal in terms of which goal was harder to do. It was easy, very easy for Orr to do that. Regular shot, and then all of a sudden he's flying through the air. And of course, the irony here is that Bossy, who many will say was the greatest natural goal scorer of all time, always felt that he was not getting the attention that he deserved because, of course, Gretzky came along and Gretzky was more romantic and blah, blah, blah. I just want to get that off my chest. And one more thing, Bruce. When the Rangers were playing around right after World War II, they had a defenseman. His name was Bill Moe, M-O-E, and he was actually from Danvers, Mass., which was very unusual. But he had a great knack of delivering a hip check. And one of his hip check, one of the pictures taken by a guy from Acme, I think it was then. It wasn't it wasn't a regular newspaper shot. It was a picture of Bill Moe checking a maple leaf by the name of Gay Stewart, and Gay Stewart was upside down. What I'm getting at was when Scott Stevens was in his prime with the Devils, he was delivering tremendous body checks. Did you ever take any great body check pictures of guys? Like Stevens knocked the crap out of Lindros once, and he did it in the playoffs when they won the cup against Detroit in '95. That was fantastic. Yeah. One of the Russian players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Stevens was great for that. Had a great shot of him hitting Paul Correa in the Stanley Cup that year. That was a great shot. And one of my greatest shots was Denny Potvin, who is known for his hip check, hitting Guy Lafleur. It was a black and white photo from my earlier days. Lafleur is completely perpendicular to the ice. It was a 3-frame sequence, boom, 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 and one frame, Lafleur's face is just sideways on the ice as Potvin is still in the crouching mode. Problem is, these days, whenever anybody hits anybody like that, it's followed by a fight. So
Right.
times have changed quite a bit, but those open ice hits, you don't see them that often. And yeah, I'm not really sure why, but they always do end up turning into fights right afterwards. But yeah, great photos, always looking for that sort of thing, but does not come around that often. That's for sure.
I want to show you one of my favorite hockey pictures. That's Bill Barilko when the Leafs won the cup in '51 because he died in a plane crash a couple of months after. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, yeah, great.
Wonderful because I was a Leaf fan.
Wait a minute, you're an Islander fan or a Leaf fan? Were you just front runner?
People ask me what kind of fan I am, and I say I got my first break with the Rangers when they hired me and got paid money, $50 a week doing publicity for them. I loved that. Then I mean, how can I not love the Islanders doing TV starting in '75, the dynasty for crying out loud, and that was one of the most wonderful teams. And then to come doing the Devils for crying out loud, 3 cups with the Devils. So I'm religious. Each one of them religion I like. I'm for what they did for me. I'm for the Islanders, for the dynasty, and for the Devils. 3 cups.
So whoever's paying you, basically, that's who you're following. That's who you're a fan of. I get it. We're all mercenaries. You know, for years I was team photographer with the Islanders, Rangers, Devils, and Flyers at the same time. I had a lot of internal conflict going on, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's an NHL record. But those were great years, and each team was different in the way they approached photography and the photographers and photo positions and lighting in the arenas. It was such a thrilling time that each day I would just be in the car rotating back and forth between different arenas and experienced just so many games in those days, you know, topping off at 120 to 140 games a year. But those team relationships, I remember them all very fondly. Each team was fabulous in their own way to deal with.
Who's your favorite player to deal with?
I guess Gretzky through all the years. I mean, we did so many things together, including his Gretzky and Friends tour of Europe, which was his barnstorming trip in '94. I became good friends with his agent, Mike Barnett, who's been in the hockey world forever, was just
Great
a
guy.
wonderful
Great.
guy. He really is terrific. And he's the one who invited me, kind of weird, when Gretzky signed with the Rangers. He was just getting bombed with requests for, you know, Gretzky in his Ranger uniform. And so he called me and we made a deal. It was a real easy deal to make. He said, look, if I go out to California, he'll get Gretzky in full Ranger garb at a local hockey rink, and I can shoot pictures of him. And then anyone who would call Gretzky to get him to do the poses and stuff, they tell him to just call me. So this way, it kind of got it all off Gretzky's plate. He can concentrate on getting ready for his first year as a Ranger, and I would make all the bucks. So that worked. That worked well.
Which athlete is in the highest demand for photos right now?
Um, you know, quite honestly, it's really pretty close across the board. McDavid is still in huge demand. The Kachuk brothers, they've got a great podcast now called Wingmen, which is pretty funny. And we get a lot of requests for photos of them. But typically, our clients just pick them off the website, and then I'll look at the reports later on. But it's the guys you would expect, the superstars. Cale Makar, McKinnon gets a lot of requests, and Crosby, of course, is having another great year. Year after year, pictures of Crosby are big sellers. And
Who is the
Matthew Schneider now as well. It's
who
been
is the
huge.
most awkward to take photos of that they don't like being photographed?
I don't know. I don't really do many one-on-one sessions with players. I did in the earlier days portrait sessions for hockey news covers and magazine covers and all, but I really don't do too much one-on-one. And I prefer it that way. Also gives me some distance from the players. Not a fan in that way. Don't want to hang out with players. They're all, my kids' age or younger. There's nothing in common that we have to really chat about. Yeah, nobody's really awkward to deal with because I don't deal with anybody directly usually.
You probably don't remember you were taking a picture. You were all set up at the hotel across the street from the Coliseum, the Marriott, and I was doing a magazine piece. Might have been Hockey Couture. I don't remember. It was a magazine piece interview, and you were taking the picture, and I was interviewing Peter Stastny, who was then the star of the Nordiques. And you were taking the picture. You probably don't remember him yelling at me, but I asked him a question. I said, "How does it feel to be the greatest Czech hockey player in the world?" And he said, "Don't you ever call me Czech. I'm a Slovak. You get that right? I'm from Slovakia." Got it?
I missed that. I did have a good shot of the three Stastny. You can pronounce it better than me. Brothers, the three Slovak brothers. That's better. A great shot of the three of them together, which was a pretty historic photograph. But you just jogged my memory with Jagger when he first came over to play in the NHL, and Upper Deck had me doing a photo session of him, and he had broken English, and all he kept saying to me, I'm explaining to him, I'm the guy from Upper Deck. Here's the photo. Here's the letter that says, this is what we're supposed to do with you. And he goes, how much you pay me? And I pay you nothing. I'm a photographer. Your agent, they have a deal with Upper Deck. He says, how much you pay me? I go, no money. The deal is set. Just stand here for a photograph. And it was the simplest photo ever, but it was like over and over again, how much you pay me? It was like the first phrase that he learned in English, and I just had to get hammered over the head with it.
You've talked a lot about what you say really reminds me of how I felt as a goalie, because your pre-process, your before the game, the pressure you feel leading up to it, the calmness you feel during the game, being your own worst critic, and also getting mad at yourself when you miss a shot. Like, it's so much like a goalie. Like I really feel it. So I'd like to give you an honorary induction into the goalie union.
Well, you guys are better than me, because I honestly do not know how you guys reset after you give up a goal and that red light shines on the back of your head and 18,000 fans are going crazy because you made a mistake. Because I know when I make a mistake, I can't get it out of my head, no matter how much I pep talk myself into, you got to get past this. It's over. It's over. You missed it. The next one's coming your way. I just don't have any idea what the mindset is for a goaltender to be able to reset and be on his game completely for the next shot.
Well, I wrote about it in my book. Actually, David Letterman once said, he couldn't understand it either, because you're pulling the evidence of your failure out of the net. And so, but a former pro goalie that I played with gave me the best advice I ever got. He said, you have 10 seconds, called 10-second rule. You have 10 seconds to be mad at yourself, then you got to forget about it. Your best asset is a short memory. So that's always what I took with me when I got mad at myself. I'd give myself 10 seconds to be mad, then I got to forget about it.
Yeah, well, I don't know where you were 50 years ago when I started this craft, but I could have used that advice the last 50 years.
Yeah, the goalie's name was Mike Blosky. He played in the Philadelphia organization for a few years, and then he came back to play senior hockey where I was playing. So he was a great influence on me, and I learned so much from him.
10-second rule.
The 10-second rule.
Got it.
Goalies are a different breed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you done much with any other sport like football, baseball?
Very little through the years. Basketball, I would do usually during NHL lockouts and work stoppages, and actually started to really enjoy the women's game, WNBA, and love photographing those games. But no, I'm more of a temperature controlled guy. So you go into a hockey arena and you get your feet cold. Otherwise, I know the sport well enough that, I've got a chance of succeeding better at hockey than I do at other sports. A little bit of baseball through the years. I did have Don Mattingly spit on me in a kind of a Seinfeld-ish episode where I was doing work for a company called Major League Graphics, and it was 3D trading cards. And you would hold the card and you'd kind of, if you move it left or right, you'd see a guy, swinging a bat or hitting a hockey puck or whatever. And I had done some cards for them, and they said, do you want to, we could use somebody doing some baseball. And what you need is these list of the players. You go out in batting practice, and the player has to swing a bat, and you do a 3-4 clicks, and you've got him, and we'll put it together on a trading card. So naive Bruce Bennett goes out to the baseball games, probably 21 years old, 22 years old, and go, oh, there's Don Mattingly. He's on the list. And I go over, and it was real concise sheet of paper from the Players Association. And I introduced myself, I'm sure in halting English, because I was really nervous. And they said they wanted to have, these 3 photos, and they'll put it together on a trading card. And he's got the bat on his shoulder, and he takes 2 steps away, and he looks back at the letter and kind of wavers back and forth, and then Patooey, and it was chewing tobacco on the letter on my shoe, my brand new shoes that I remember I bought just for that occasion. And I go, I think I'll go back to hockey where I belong. And hockey players spit on me or disrespect me in any way. So
wow.
Most people in the business who covered all the big major sports, they've always said that hockey players are the nicest guys. You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got limited experience, in the other sports, but the quality, the quality of the individual in the hockey players, the way they're brought up into the sport, the camaraderie, the family lives that they lead, the genuine caring about not only their own teammates, but the players on the other teams. I don't really think you see that anywhere else. There's also, I find that many of them that I deal with have great sense of humor. So you can kid around with them. Yeah, I know it's kind of interesting. I don't know, in the early days, I used to think maybe because they make less money in other sports, it keeps them grounded a little bit better. But now that, they're in much higher tax brackets, you still find that the quality of the individual is just heads and shoulders above a lot of people you would meet in everyday life.
Absolutely. Well, we come into an end of the show, and the tradition of ours is Maeve closes with the joke. Do you have a joke for us, Maeve?
This is the 3rd world's fastest doctor joke. Okay, you got that? 3rd world's fastest doctor joke. Guy goes in to see the doctor. He says, "Doctor, my leg hurts. What should I do?" And the doctor says, "Limp."
You haven't changed at all, have you? Yeah, sad, very sad.
Yeah, great time at the Olympics, my friend, and great to have you. I gotta go now, guys.
Huge thanks to Bruce for joining us, an incredible conversation. Big thanks as always to Maeve and Jerry, and to everyone listening and watching. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you are subscribed to Bottle Rocket wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on socials for more hockey conversations. We'll catch you next time.